What's up, Titans fans? Maximus Titan fan here. I guess I got a little lost in that intro. Sorry about that. I always get excited about my own
It's so
intro.
good. I understand how that happens. It's so good.
I really love watching that. Anyway, this is Titans Global Podcast. I'm way off right now, but thank you for joining us. As always, I am your host, Maximus Titan fan, and I got my buddy Link with me. What's up, Link?
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? Glad you guys are here. Glad you made it this week. As always, make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to subscribe. The show is for you guys. We want to get y'all involved. Going to cover a lot of stuff tonight, and most importantly, we want your opinions. So get in the comment section, talk to us. We're going to have a great time.
Yeah, man, and I don't know if y'all noticed, but we have a special guest tonight. He goes by the name of Tyler Rowland. He's the host of Locked On Titans, Tic Tac Titans on YouTube, which I absolutely love that channel. If you are not watching it, go follow it. You got to get on that. That is awesome. And he also writes for Sports Illustrated. What's up, Tyler?
Not much. Not much. Just, in this summer dead period, I'll be 100%. I'm trying to, enjoy the outdoors and go golfing and kayaking and, played some pickleball tonight, just trying to enjoy the weather and enjoy the little break before the football really ramps up at the end of the month. But I'm starting to get that itch, man. Watching those highlights and that intro, man, I am certainly ready for training camp and some football. So having a little discussion with you guys about it will definitely help keep me going.
Awesome, man. We're really glad that you came on this. It's the second time on the show, actually. You were on, actually, I was just telling Link before the show, you were on I think you were on my like fifth or sixth show. It really early in my career. Again, really appreciate it, Tyler. You're awesome. So tonight we're going to talk about some camp battles, breakout players, and maybe get to a little bit more in depth of the Will Levis situation and what's going on, what we should expect. What are lofty expectations or what are normal expectations? Because sometimes we get lost as Titans fans, even me. I admit it. But before I get to that, real quickly, if y'all follow me on Twitter, I put out a giveaway trying to boost my YouTube subscribers, and I know this is a kind of a sellout move, but whatever. That's what my daughter told me I need to do. She has way more subscribers than I do, which is crazy. But so this is it. If I get to 300 subscribers by August 1st, I will make a live video of me drinking mayo in my coffee.
Ooh.
Oh, Lord help me. I'm a connoisseur of my coffee, by the way. I make it very specific. I have special brands, special syrups, special creamer. Like, I do crazy stuff to my coffee to make it right. So putting mayo in it is, and I hate mayonnaise anyway. So putting it, oh my God. But she
That's how
told
I
me
feel
that's what I
about
need to do.
coffee. So I already think that you're a champ. I think coffee is terrible. And obviously anyone who's ever watched me on YouTube knows I don't need any coffee. So that has a lot to do with it too. But you're
Very true.
already
And
playing with
coffee is
fire.
kind of a not a really good hydrator as you like to always talk about. So got to think about that too. All right, so on to the other news. Sorry, that was a weird segue, but camp battles. Middle linebacker for me. For me, I'm the most excited to see middle linebacker. Because right after the draft, everybody was talking about, oh, Cedric Gray, man, he's going to get the green dot right out of the gate, and then we get kind of into OTAs and minicamp, and we find out Dr. Gibby actually has a chance here. He's got a pretty good shot, actually, because he was wearing the green dot. So I really feel like it's going to come down to one of those two. And if I have to give one of them the go ahead, it's Gibby, just because of the NFL experience. And that's just based on me. Link, what about you, brother? What's one of the ones you're really excited about? Oh, Link, Mike.
There we go. There it is.
There we go.
No, I'm really excited about linebacker just because there's a lot of names there. I mean, you got Gibbons, you got Cedric Gray, Kenneth Murray, Otis Reese. I mean, there's a lot of battle that's going to happen when camp starts, and I think it'll carry over to preseason. I'm really interested to see who they go with in preseason, who gets the reps. But I feel like it's going to be a battle all the way up to week one. Another one I'm looking at on defense is safety. It's been talked about a lot. A lot of people thought they'd go out and get a veteran. There was a lot of names being thrown out there. But it seems like Elijah Molden and Amani Hooker are kind of the guys. I'm okay with that to start out with. I like what Amani Hooker can do. I think he's got some good intangibles. Elijah Molden, he shows that he does belong in the NFL when he can stay healthy. But again, that's going to be another one where you got a lot of names there. You still got some people on the market. It's still possible that they can make a move on somebody. So just kind of interested to see when training camp starts, who they go out with safety, who they go out with linebacker, and on defense, those are the two that I'm really looking forward to.
I'm with you guys there, but I'm looking at that secondary edge rusher spot. We know that Arden Key, I think it's kind of funny to me how it worked because early on, Brian Callahan was asked about Arden Key, and they said he's a good rotational rusher, is what he said. Notice that, rotational rusher. And then, a month and a half passes by, he gets asked again. He's like, well, we got to defend against the run, blah, 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 but he's certainly making the most of his. Brian Callahan is telling you, without saying it directly, we think Arden Key is more of a rotational guy than a starter. We don't know if he can play against the run, which he wasn't good last year. He's not physical enough to set the edge consistently. And I think one of the big things with Arden Key is his energy. He's an energy guy. He's high energy. And if you're a starter and you're playing starter snaps, it'll be tough. So does Rashad Weaver maybe as more of a stronger edge? Does he maybe squeeze his way into a starting opportunity and be number 2 in that rotation? Do they bring in another guy at free agency? That secondary edge rusher position, I know most people would just say, Arden Key, blah, 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 duh, move on. I don't think Arden Key is a starting edge in the NFL. He's a third edge. And when he was with San Francisco and with Jacksonville, when he had his best years of his career, it was as a third rusher, not a starter. So I'm curious to see if Rashad Weaver or free agent X, if one of those guys can come in and be that starting edge rusher across from Harold Landry.
I will say that does interest me a lot just because last year I really thought Rashad Weaver was going to have a bigger role.
Right.
And he didn't. And I really thought, honestly, I thought Arden Key and Rashad Weaver both were going to be just electric. And neither one of them really just bounced off the sheet to me or anything. But
right.
I will say I do love Arden Key just for his moxie, I guess you want to call it, whatever his attitude. I love that word. He has a great attitude coming into camp. I think they played a video and it was something like Friday vibes on a Monday or something like that when he was coming in. It was beautiful. I thought it was awesome. But as far as production goes, I would like to see the numbers a little bit higher as far as him and Rashad Weaver. So interested to see if either one of those guys takes a good step forward. The other position for me was offensive right tackle. I know it's an easy one to say, but honestly, it's the one that interests me the most. I don't even really care that much about right guard. I want to know right tackle because the Texans, they already had Will Anderson. He was doing decently. Now they've got Henderson, or am I
Danielle Hunter?
Thank you, Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jacksonville didn't slouch on it either. They got a really good off defensive line. So I really feel like right tackle is very important, at least that position personally. And I know I've gotten a lot of flack for it. I might get a little more flack for it tonight, but that's okay. But I'm still going to say for me, the front runner is Sadiq Charles. And I don't know why. It's just a gut feeling, I guess. But I know he didn't practice there at OTAs. He primarily was at right guard. I get that. And I know that saying that sounds almost dumb at this point, but I still believe that for some dumb reason. I really do feel like he's going to be the right tackle at the end of the day. And one thing that glaringly points to it is, first of all, MPF, I don't know what's going on with him. The fact that he wasn't at OTAs and stuff like that, I don't know. It just bothers me. And they were talking about him maybe trying to rehab or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, Dylan Radins looks like he's going to come back quicker from an ACL later in the season than NPF is going to come back from an upper body injury that happened earlier in the season than Raiden's ACL tear. Like Raiden's tore his ACL in week 15. I think NPF got hurt week 10, week 11. And Raiden's was basically good to go by the time the season came around. He was at least practicing and stuff. So I really need to see NPF out on the practice field for the start of training camp. If he's still not ready for training camp, it's time to kind of worry. And there's nobody really out there. All of the decent free agent offensive tackles have basically only played left tackle. They're not right tackles at all. So NPF is basically being handed a starting right tackle job. And I need to see him be out on the field to even feel comfortable about it.
Yep. Yeah, I 100% agree. And look at the options behind him. Jalen Duncan, John Ajoku. There's Leroy Watson, who we picked up in the offseason. He's probably a decent
Jerron
backup.
Christian, they just traded for. I mean,
but he played that. My biggest thing is he's played left tackle the entire time. So I don't think that he's going to be a right tackle guy.
I agree.
I have to give my shout out here to Hugo. What's up, Hugo? He watches me from Brazil, man. I got to give him some love, dude. He is one of the dedicated fans. All right, who else you excited to see on the offensive side of the ball, Link?
Yeah, so right tackle is one for me too, and I'm right there with you guys. Going into OTAs, I thought it was NPS job to lose, and then he's not there, and that was a big one for me. But another one I'm looking at on the offensive side, actually two I'm looking at. Maybe not as important as that right tackle spot, but the two I'm looking at is your third running back. You got a lot of guys right now. You got Chestnut. You got Haskins, you got Jabari Smalls coming in, you got the new kid, you got Dylan Johnson coming in. So, a lot of names there. They're going to be fighting for that third running back position, and I really expect a battle, going into preseason and going into training camp. And then another one, which is kind of a glaring issue for me right now, is your wide receiver 4. I mean, you've locked up those first 3 spots. You did a great job in free agency. You brought in Ridley, you brought in Boyd, but now who can you put on the outside, or who can you move into the slot when Boyd's not there? Who can you bring in to really up that? You got Kyle Phillips, you got NWI, who's been consistent. You got Traylon Burks, who everybody's got their own opinion about Traylon Burks. So going into training camp, who's going to step up and earn that wide receiver 4 spot? And that to me is going to be huge, because you need to see progression out of those 3 guys, because those 3 going in, I think that's your top spot. But then you've got new kids coming in from the draft, and I think they're going to put up a fight for it. You got a lot of speed coming in. And as consistent as NWI's been and as inconsistent as Traylon Burks has been, who you going with in that spot? Are you taking a chance, or are you going to bring in veterans who already kind of know what they're doing? And that to me is going to be interesting to watch.
NWI is the boy who lived. You just can't kill him. He's the roster pirate. And listen, he deserves it at this point. Like, I've been a vocal guy against NWI, but to me, it's not so much him as a player. It's what he represented philosophically for the Titans. If you have NWI as one of your top 2 snap getters for multiple seasons, like, that is a philosophical issue with whoever is creating the offense. And of course, Mike Vrabel and his idea of what offense needs to be. So, I've given NWI a lot of flack, but if I'm honest with myself, a lot of that is because I hated what he represented with this team. And that's the lack of care about explosive wide receivers. But in this role as wide receiver 4, and I got to tell you, I think that NWI will get more snaps than Traylon Burks, because he is just more reliable. He just is, especially with the 3 wide receiver looks that we're going to see from Brian Callahan's offense. He's going to play so much in 3 wide receiver. And look in San Francisco. San Francisco uses 3 wide receiver, and they used Juwan Jennings, right? The guy from Tennessee, who's with San Francisco, just got a contract extension. And to me, I made the joke that, like, Juwan Jennings is the Michael Jordan of NWIs. Like, he's the best version. NWI evolved to his final form is Juwan Johnson. Like, that's the best version of NWI you can find in the NFL. And I think that the Titans will end up using NWI a lot in the slot, mixing in with Tyler Boyd, because then he can act as a pseudo tight end in the run game and block. You can't have Chigakonkwo as your only tight end out there and being 3 wide receiver and then block. You need another person who can block on the perimeter, because we know Hopkins and Ridley aren't going to be like devastating blockers. You know what I mean? So I think that NWI, like we do every year, he will become more valuable in the season than people expect or hope or want or whatever. And I think that you can count on NWI a lot more than you can count on Traylon Burks.
Right. And for me, it's
Absolutely.
health. For me, it's health. I mean, when you look at that wide receiver 4 spot, you're looking for a guy that can stay on the field consistently. And that's the reason why Traylon Burks kind of falls off the map for me, just because we don't know what his health is going to be like this season. NWI, I mean, pending the injury at the end of the season, I mean, he's been healthy. He's been available for every single game. And that's what's kept him a spot on this roster is just being available and the availability that he has. So for me right now, I'm looking at NWI over Kyle Phillips. I'm looking at NWI over Traylon Burks. As much as I want to see those other two guys succeed, I want somebody who can be on the field if, God forbid, something happened and Hopkins goes down or Boyd goes down or Ridley goes down.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm looking at these new guys coming in, and God, I love Jaquan Jackson. And if he can show up at camp and he can show up in the preseason and prove that he can be an NFL caliber wide receiver, I feel like he could give NWI, Traylon Burks, Kyle Phillips, I feel like he could give them a run for their money because that's another guy. He's got the speed, which is what you feel like this team's been missing at that wide receiver position. Somebody who can get behind the defense, somebody who can make the deep routes. So that's kind of one of my hopeful guys that I'm looking for going into training camp to see if he can step up and possibly be NFL caliber material.
It's funny that you mentioned that because to me, where I'm looking at wide receiver, I think that wide receiver 6 spot. Now, let's just say this. This is some deep Tennessee Titans content right here. We're talking wide receiver 6 here. I mean, this is for the sickos, all right? But to me, NWI and Traylon Burks can both be outside perimeter guys, and they can kind of work in the slot if you need them to. We know NWI is going to work on special teams. Traylon Burks just has a little bit too much talent, and with the first-round pick, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to, like, cut him or give up on him right now. He's going to skate by one more year just on pedigree, just where he's drafted and all of that. To me, that wide receiver 6 spot is Kyle Phillips. Because I think they're going to keep Jaquan Jackson no matter what for the return ability. Can Kyle Phillips get back into the punt return mode to beat out Jaquan Jackson and push Jaquan Jackson to the practice squad? Like some people say they're going to keep 7 wide receivers. And Al's asking right now, shout out to Al, but I don't think they're keeping 7 wide receivers. That's so many wide receivers, man. Like, and Jaquan Jackson and Kyle Phillips are too similar. So I don't understand why they would need to keep both of them. I don't see that as a logical thing. Like, why would you need both of those players? So to me, I think they're keeping 6, and I think Jaquan Jackson versus Kyle Phillips is another one to pay attention to. I do want to hit on one more battle here, and it's not so much, I guess, because I think both these guys will play a ton, but that tight end spot, boys. We've heard the Josh Wiley hype. It makes all the sense in the world. He's a bigger bodied guy. He's more of a matchup type player. If he's really added weight and strength, like the coaching staff said, he can be more of the traditional inline wide tight end with his hand in the dirt next to the offensive tackle, to where, let's just call it what it is. Chigakonkwo cannot do that. He can't do that all year long. He can't be a Travis Kelce type tight end, a Mark Andrews type tight end. He's just not big enough to do it. Now, he can still be an explosive weapon. Chigakonkwo can have more receiving yards and more catches than Josh Wiley. But I still think that Josh Wiley could end up being the guy who gets the most snaps, as you were talking about earlier, Link. So, to me, that tight end spot, not so much of like who is the starter, because I think both guys will play a ton. But can Josh Wiley really kind of take that step to equal himself with Chigakonkwo in a rotation? Or is it still going to be one of those things where we're like, oh, okay, the Josh Wiley hype was overdone, and it's Chigakonkwo and Nick Van Eck that are out there getting the majority of the reps? There's only going to be room for 2 tight ends to get big-time reps, in my opinion, since they're going to be running a lot more one tight end. I mean, Mike Vrabel's offense, they had 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends out there all the time. There was more snaps available for tight ends. Now, in this more 3 wide receiver based offense, there's less tight end snaps to go around. So I'm curious if Josh Wiley can kind of get up on that level with Chigakonkwo, since he's honestly, in my opinion, a more seamless fit into the starting lineup.
Yeah, I'm actually going to talk about Josh Wiley a little bit later on, so I'll save most of mine for later.
Mm,
But I think you're
mm.
right on target there, Tyler. Not only that, y'all were talking, you were talking about Link, the third running back and the fourth wide receiver. We hit on all three. Y'all hit on all three of the things that will make that a roster bubble spot, and that is availability, consistency, and special teams.
Yep.
All
Mm-hmm.
three of those things must be met by the fourth, fifth, and sixth receiver. All of those must be met because otherwise, why are you here? And just like you said, I don't see any reason. Kyle Phillips is the odd man looking in. I
Yeah.
hate to say it, but he is the odd man out. He's been inconsistency with his injury, and then yeah, like you said, Jaquan Jackson is basically the same size, same player, same everything that he is.
And more
Why would they
versatile.
go and draft
Yep.
another guy? Yeah, exactly. So I just feel like yeah, he's the odd man out on that. Six wide receiver, but let's talk about breakout players.
Mm.
I love talking about breakout players, and for me personally, and I'll give credit to Link, dude. Like last year, towards the end of the season, Link brought up a point to me. At first, he brought it up off camera, and then we talked about it on camera. But you know, Tajay Spears had a better yard per average almost the entire season, running behind the best pure running back in the NFL.
Yep.
Um, he he still had a better yard per average than Derrick Henry all season. And then when you look at his passing yards, he had a 7.4 yard per gain in passing. I mean, if you average all of his yards, he still had 5.5 yards per touch of the football.
Mm-hmm.
That is an electric player that is going to see action. And not only that, if you look at all the stats between Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, and y'all know I'm not just going to spit off a bunch of stats at you guys because that's not what my show is about. I'm not trying to bore you, I'm trying to educate you. But everything Tony Pollard does, Tajay Spears is already better at last year, except touchdowns. That's the
Mm-hmm.
only stat line that Pollard has a little bit better. So yeah, I feel like we're gonna see more of the same. Not only that, I feel like Tajay Spears is just younger, more electric, runs harder. I mean, the kid just gives effort. Not only that, man, if you saw in my intro, one of my favorite pieces from last year was when he ran up and interrupted Will Levis in his interview to give him a big hug after the Miami win. It was, and not only that, in the offseason, if you guys follow, where he was messing with Rand Carthon, as he's Rand Carthon sitting there probably on the phone with either Calvin Ridley or I mean somebody big, probably. And Tajay Spears over there messing with him like it's a kid or something.
That's his
I
son,
love
dude.
Tajay Spears. I know. I
Oh
love
yeah.
Like
Tajay
Rand
Spears.
Carthon loves Tajay Spears. We hear him talk about him. He's like, he just loves football. He's a ball kid. Like he's just absolutely, he's down at the Senior Bowl in his off time, working with the guys. Like Tajay Spears loves football. And the only thing that loves something more than Tajay Spears love football is Rand Carthon's love for Tajay Spears. Like he loves Tajay. You can hear it anytime he talks about him. And guess what? I love Tajay Spears too. So I'm in on that. He is just an excellent dude, fun personality, explosive player. I'm all aboard the Tajay Spears hype train.
Yeah, man. Honestly, he is my new favorite Titan. I cannot
Mm-hmm.
wait to meet the kid in person. I think he's going to be electric and fun. What about you, Link? You got any breakout players, brother?
Yeah, I do, and I never thought I'd say this a few weeks ago or maybe a month or two ago, but I'm going with the rookie and I'm going with J.C. Latham. And
Nice.
I did not like this pick on draft night, if I'm being completely honest. I wasn't a fan of it. Took me a while to kind of settle into it. But I will say, after seeing the work he's put in, and then the coaching staff that they put together with Bill Callahan and the way that he shows up and the way that he works and the way that he seems to already be meshing with his teammates, I feel like this is going to be a staple to this offensive line, and I feel like it can be a long time to come. So, I mean, I don't think this offensive line could have been any worse than it was last year. But to see the significant improvements I think they're going to make, that excites me. And I feel like J.C. Latham's going to be a big part of that. And I won't be surprised if this dude's in a Pro Bowl. Just the way that he works and the coaching staff they've put around him, I feel like he's going to have a pretty breakout season as a rookie. And I'm excited to see it.
Can we say this? I said this on my show like last week. I know that it's only been summer OTAs and rookie mini camp and like we haven't put the pads on and all that, but could you ask for a better start for a Titans first round rookie? When was the last time a Titans first round rookie had this kind of positive start where, A to Z's talking about JC Latham literally being the leader of the offensive line group already? Yep. Obviously, we're hearing the stories of his work ethic that seem genuine, not contrived. It's not like they're trying to act like he's this hard worker and he's actually not. Like his ability hitting those sleds and his personality. Like I said this, the reality is the Titans are an underserved team in terms of how much we're discussed in the media and, having big superstars that people have on TV shows. And think what you want to think about Taylor Lewan. I think he's underrated personally. I think he was a better player than people give Taylor Lewan credit for because of the off-field antics and the frat boy mentality and the penalties and all that. There are a lot of reasons why Taylor Lewan's personality can rub people the wrong way. And as someone who has a personality that just naturally rubs people the wrong way, like I can't even be mad if people don't like me sometimes because some personalities they're just hard to, you've had people, you just hearing them talk. You're like, shut up. I can't stand you. You know what I mean? Lewan's got that frat boy mentality to him that a lot of people just don't like. So I don't want to compare JC Latham to that, but JC Latham has such a vibrant personality. Like even asking Brian Callahan, like breaking into the press conference, like, so, coach, are we running tackle screens this year? Like just everything about JC Latham's beginning. I know that it's not super consequential stuff, but we could not ask for a better start to a rookie's career. And then you compare that to the second round pick, which I won't get into right now. It puts it in the loudspeaker how great JC Latham has been and how he has checked every box. So we don't know if he's going to be great or not. But he has checked every single box for what I would want from my first-round rookie already and then some. So I agree with you. I think Latham may be a rookie, but he could be considered one of the top 10 offensive tackles in the league if things go well by the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have to give you credit too, Tyler. To be honest, I wasn't even looking at JC Latham in the draft before you did a show on him and showed how violent he was and how strong he was and all that stuff. And I did start to consider it was a possibility if we traded down. I expected that. If I'm being real, I thought, well, maybe if they trade down, they'll get this Latham kid and he can work, Well, then I found out that he was Callahan's favorite player in the draft. Yep. And, I made my comments on my show where if a man that skilled at picking out players says that that's his favorite dude, then that's the dude you go out and draft.
Who are we?
Smart guy.
Who are we to say otherwise? Like, how can I get on my show and say, you know what, Bill Callahan's wrong? You know what I mean? Like, not a chance. So I was late on JC Latham too. Like, I got tweets out there that I know people are going to bring up and throw back at me where I say, do not draft JC Latham, blah, 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 blah. But I recounted about a month before the draft. I watched more film. Shout out to No Flags Film, James Foster, who does great work for the draft. And I think we got to give credit to the guy. Could be a little cantankerous, but Glory Holtz or whatever, he was riding that JC Latham train months in advance. So, got to give credit where credit is due on that. That's I was late on it. So, and when he got drafted, I was with you, Link. I was like, I like the pick. I don't love it. I would have loved the Neighbors. I would have loved Latham in a trade down a couple of spots. Would have been perfect. Mm-hmm. But, if you trade down, you never know. And we're starting to hear, it sounds like a lot of people were higher on Latham than we realized. And he probably wasn't going to be there if they traded down too far. You would have been with Fashanu, or you would have been with Fatanu, or, Fuaga, or one of those guys, or even Mims. So looking back on it, it was the right decision for them. So I'm with you there. To switch gears, because it's a good segue, my breakout player is the guy next to J.C. Latham, Peter Skoronski. I mean, I have been a Peter Guns guy for a long time. Since before he was drafted the Titans, I was pounding the table, asking for Skoronski. Look, last year was up and down. Has the appendectomy in the middle of the season. You got freaking Aaron Brewer and Andre Dillard or Jalen Duncan or whatever on either side of you. Like, the offensive line coaching, going from Jason Hotaling, who didn't get a full-time, like, lead offensive line coaching job. He had to go back to being an assistant offensive line coach with the Bears. He was not ready to be the offensive line coach, but Mike Vrabel wanted yes men. He wanted, sycophants next to him. That's what Mike Vrabel wanted, and instead of going out and getting an established veteran offensive line coach, when you had a crap offensive line, you needed a vet. You can't do a crap offensive line and a first-year offensive line coach who's just a yes man for you. That's not going to work, and it didn't work. So I think coaching, the emergency surgery, the talent around him, Peter Skoronski was not in a position to succeed last year, and he's a rookie. But I did a film breakdown on Peter Skoronski showing some of his best games. And that game in Week 18 against Jacksonville, he was an elite offensive lineman in that game, still with the crap around him, still in a bad offense. Now seeing him and seeing how much bigger he is and physically more stout he is, and he's talked about it as well. When you're a rookie, guys, we've all had new jobs. When you start a new job, you may be great at it. Like, I did a lot of customer service in my early 20s, like, welcome to AT&T. How can I help you? Like, answering phones. All right, I am great at talking. I'm great at talking. But when you start a new job, where do I go to find this information? How do I execute this in this system? This person just called me a cuss word. Can I hang up on him? Like, you got questions. And Peter Skoronski was a rookie. It's hard enough to adapt in a new city, changing towns, changing everything, new position as well. I just think Peter Skoronski is going to go from a guy who half of the fan base was like, oh, this was a bad pick, to a guy that is like a top 5 guard in the NFL, and everybody knows it. Like, whoa, Peter Skoronski is dominant. Like, I really do think Peter Skoronski is a guy who's going to be like Pro Bowl, all-pro level. And let me just say this about the Pro Bowl. I know it's garbage now. Like, anybody gets in, but it's still nice to have that recognition, and it's still nice to put some pelts on the wall. So people could say the Pro Bowl sucks and doesn't matter anymore, but just to be in that conversation proves that you've done some things right. I'd rather have guys who make the Pro Bowl than guys who don't at the end of the day, right? So I think Peter Skoronski will be to that level. He'll be considered, one of the top 10 guards in the NFL and maybe higher, with better help around him, better coaching, better offense, and just improved physical health and more just comfortability in his life, without the job change and being a rookie and all that. I'm really high on Peter Skoronski's growth in year 2.
Well, it's just like you said, instead of having damned if you do and damned if you don't on the side of you, you've got J.C. Latham and Cushenberry.
Yes.
To be honest, when they made those first 2 moves, I immediately went, oh, wait a minute. Our whole left side now is going to be taken care of. The blind side's good. Everybody on Twitter was saying run left, because, we could do that again like we did back in the day. But I don't know. I agree. I think Skoronski's going to be way better with some supporting cast, a little bit of coaching, and some muscle. Yeah, I agree. 100%. 100%.
Well, and one thing I'll point out is it's nice to finally start to see what the plan was all along, because on draft night, we were really concerned. Why aren't we taking receivers? Why aren't we taking this? Why aren't we taking that? But now we're starting to see it all come together. They had a plan for this. They knew they were going to go out and try to get Boyd. They knew they were going to go out and try to get Ridley. They wanted to fix that offensive line. I still have questions about the second pick, like you kind of alluded to earlier, but we're starting to see everything kind of come together. And this team, it feels like at the end of the season, we were talking about a rebuild. Now we're talking about more of a rebranding, it feels like. And I mean, they did a very good job of I guess retooling this team and making sure that they still stay competitive. I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, I think they're at the top of the AFC South, but I will say they at least have a shot at it. And going out of last year, I wasn't prepared to say it. I really thought we were looking at one of those, 3-win seasons, 4-win seasons, and then maybe be competitive again in 2 to 3 years. Now I'm sitting here saying, man, I mean, this team, looking at the quarterback position, looking at the receiver position, looking at the young talent coming up, the running back positions, the offensive line, and the depth and kind of the age that they've got on the offensive line. I mean, this team's going to stay competitive, I feel like, and that's kind of the goal, right? I mean, especially in a division where you've got young quarterbacks left and right, you've got guys that are getting talked about. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, is just making sure you stay competitive, because if you give yourself a shot at the end of the season, anything can happen.
Absolutely. And Max, I'm going to set you up here with a softball segue. Talk about the left side of the offensive line, keeping Will Levis's blind side clean. Mm-hmm. Early downs from a clean pocket. Expected points added per attempt. Will Levis, 5th in the NFL, top 5 in the NFL, 0.32. Brock Purdy at 1, Nick Mullins at 2. I don't know how that happens. Jared Goff at 3, CJ Stroud at 4, and then Will Levis at 5. So you give Will Levis a clean pocket with that left side. He can monitor the right side. That's not his blind side. He can watch what's going on right there, have a tight end help NPF. They could do that. But giving Will Levis that clean pocket, he's going to shred people from a clean pocket. So protecting that blind side, let him watch the front side. And as we can see from the stats, I mean, he's going to be able to cook in those situations. So that's what they got to do.
Yeah, and, that is a perfect segue, because we're going to talk about Will Levis in a little bit more depth, because I get a lot of people talking to me, asking me questions. Is this kid for real? Should we be excited about him? Yeah. I mean, yeah, you should be excited about him, because we caught a glimpse of what he may be out of 3 games in the season. Mm-hmm. We had a terrible supporting crew, so that you can't really just base what we had off. Let me give you one of the advanced stats real quick. Highest rate of incompletions due to inaccurate passes, 27.8%. That's the 9th best in the NFL. Due to inaccurate. That's one of the highest things I hear on message boards or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. His inaccuracy. He's inaccurate. He can't. And
for reference, because I know what Warren Sharp, the stats are great. Warren Sharp does a great. Deshaun Watson had 43.9% of his incompletions due to inaccurate passes, and Will Levis is all the way down at 27. That's like Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert. That's where Will Levis is on that. So you're right. Everybody wants to talk about how inaccurate he is and blah, 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 blah. But most of his incompletions aren't because the ball was inaccurate. It's drops. It's, good defense in general, because he was trying to fit things into spaces, and he's getting rid of the ball off his back foot, getting hit, for the circumstances that he was in, yes, the circumstances he was in, to have most of his incompletions not actually be from incomplete passes. That's a great sign. And on the flip side of that, again, Warren Sharp, since you brought up the stats, good stat, highest rate of incompletions due to a receiver error. So the wide receiver is the one making the mistake here. Top 2 in the NFL, Tennessee, 21%. Mm-hmm. So you're those 2 stats right there from Warren Sharp in the past 2 days tell the story that the incompletions are because the wide receivers are messing up, not because Will Levis is throwing inaccurate passes. That along with the big time throws, the hero throw percentages, like the guy is off the charts with some of the crazy stuff. And then the bad stuff that people say isn't really as bad as people act like it is. So I don't know what else to tell people if they don't have hope here that he's going to go nuts.
Yeah, now there is a little bit of hesitancy. I do have to say, proceed with caution, because we are talking about a guy that we only got a couple games of glimpse because our team was so terrible. Now, me and Link have talked about it before with multiple guests about the interceptions, not so much the interceptions that that actually were completed, but the interceptions that were dropped.
Mm-hmm.
There was quite a few that were thrown right into the chest of a defender that were dropped. And if all of those balls are caught, we have a completely different conversation. However, we have to backtrack and talk about how terrible our team was again. Had the worst offensive line. I think it was 31st in the NFL, but basically the worst offensive line in the entire NFL when it comes
Bottom
to pass
three
protection. Yeah. And he was sacked 9.9% of the time when attempting a pass.
Crazy.
Which is the 5th best in the NFL, which is just stupid. Those numbers are stupid. But the point I'm bringing up here is the fact that he gets hit more than he makes a mistake. And B, he loves to throw the long ball. 12.1 per pass completion yardage. 12.1 yards. He loves throwing the ball long. And what does Callahan's offense do? They chuck the ball, man. And who do we have? Oh, I don't know. One of the best possession wide receivers in DeAndre Hopkins. I think somebody brought up the fact that he had 133 receptions and had, I think it was something stupid like 3 or 4 drops out of the whole season. I don't know the exact stat because I did not write that one down. But my point is, then we got Calvin Ridley, who is a deep threat. Obviously, that's what we got him for. That's what he does best. And then we got Tyler Boyd, work in the middle of the field. Tajay Spears or Tony Pollard working the check down. My God, it's going to be like Will Levis went from eating rice in a small village to having an all-you-can-eat buffet in Texas. I'm just saying, dude, I don't know how much more I can talk about. Yes, you should be excited. Yes, there should be a little bit of caution in the brain saying, okay, well, this probably isn't the next coming of Jesus in football. Probably a bad euphemism there. But anyway, my point is he's not going to be the savior, maybe not going to be the savior of our team.
But maybe he is, man.
Well, so that brings me to my question. So we talked about, you give him an offensive line, you give him weapons, you give him receivers. So now what do you need to see in his second year? What do you need to see from Will Levis to say at the end of the season he had a successful season? Is it a division title? Is it 40 plus touchdowns? Is it 4,000 plus yards? What makes this a successful season for Will Levis in y'all's opinion?
See, I think it's a disservice to, I'm not saying that's how you actually think about it. I get you're just saying you're just giving examples of things when I say this, but I think assigning like a statistical value or like they got to win the division, he's got to throw 40 touchdowns, 4,000. I think that's a disservice to the process of what we're actually looking at. Again, I know you weren't saying that. Those are the things. You're just, giving examples. But to me, it's decision-making. I reference Pittsburgh, where he goes deep down the left-hand sideline to Treylon Burks, and he's got Kyle Phillips working the slant wide open underneath. There are just certain examples like that on his film where he wants to, and this goes back to what we were talking about just a second ago, because I think a lot of the turnover plays are Will Levis knows, hey, we score 16 points a game. We're down by 10. I'm going to chuck it, F it. I'm throwing the football. Huck it, chuck it, football. I think a lot of his mentality and approach last year was Mike Vrabel saying, throw the deep ball. Maybe we get a pass interference. Maybe it connects. We need points. We can't score. We can't just nickel and dime teams all the way down the field with good offensive execution. We got to hit explosive plays or we ain't scoring. So I think if Levis can tune that out and get back into, hey, I'm just going to make the right call with what's in front of me. I don't got to be I want him to be aggressive, but he has to make the right decisions and be situationally aggressive. So I want to see, and we hear the reports out of camp that maybe he's a little late on things in camp. Of course, new offense, new system, new players, new coaching. It may take some time for him to get, but if that bleeds into the regular season and he's late on his progressions and he's not making the right calculated decisions, to me, it's all mental because we know he has the arm, he has the athleticism to be, he's not Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen, but he has good mobility. He can move, I compare him a lot at his absolute peak. I think he could be like Brett Favre. He's going to move around. He's going to be creative. He's a gamer. He's got a lot of high energy. He plays with a childlike enthusiasm. He's throwing bullets. He's going to be aggressive. He might throw some turnovers, throw some interceptions too, but he's going to make more winning plays than losing plays. To me, all of that is about the mental approach. So for me, I want to see Will Levis make good decisions. I want to see him cut out some of the bad decisions that I think were more of a product of the situation than him personally as a player. So to me, it's mental. So at the end of the season, I just want him mentally to show he's a high-level quarterback, because I don't really have a lot of doubt about his physical talent. Whereas you think about a guy like Tua, you know what I mean? Like, does he have the arm to drive the ball in the winter? Does he have the mobility when the pocket breaks down to make second reaction plays? Like, those are questions about Tua. Mentally he processes fine, blah, 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 all of that. But, like, at the end of the day, Will Levis is like the opposite of that. He's got all the physical talent you could ever want, but can he mentally be a high-level quarterback? That to me is what matters most. So my judge of him and his season will be looking at the film and seeing whether he's processing things timely and correctly. And I think that'll be the judge more than, anybody who wants to assign like a yardage or touchdown number or a completion percentage or anything because things could not look great and he could still take a big jump. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess it just depends. But for me, that's what I'm looking for, is just how he mentally processes the game. That'll be most important.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And you've got a lot of Kentucky. I mean, I'm a diehard Tennessee Vol fan. Go Big Orange. Okay. And you've got
congrats on the baseball title.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Fun team. Coming for football next. So my thing is, and there's a lot of Kentucky fans out there that are saying the same thing, because when he was at Kentucky, it's almost like he got worse as time went on, because he got in his own head, because he does have so much emotion. Yep. He goes so high when he's up, but at Kentucky, he could go so low when he was down. And I think last year – he fixed that a little bit, because we saw emotional moments where he bounced back, where he made a bad read, he made a bad pass, where maybe Mike Vrabel wasn't your best friend at all times, and he was able to overcome some of that. So for me, going into this second season, what I want to see is just a little bit of temperament. I want to see smart decisions, and don't do too much. Kind of like you alluded to earlier, just you don't have to be the hero on every single play. Now that you have an offensive line, you don't have to run people over. Do I want to see this man continue his career for 10 years? Yes. At the same time, do I want to see him cause a fumble on an interception? Absolutely. But for me, it's just finding that middle ground of being smart, staying on the field, and becoming an NFL quarterback, because you can't do what he's done forever. I think this is a good pocket guy. I like the comparison to Brett Favre. I even see a little bit of Matt Stafford in there, the high energy, the great teammate, the guy who's going to pick everybody up, who's going to try to be on the field no matter what. I just want to see him continue to do that and not digress. And that, for me, would be a successful second season.
I think Brian Callahan helps with that temperament thing too. Mike Vrabel is a fiery guy. Mike Vrabel is an up and down, blah, 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 screaming at people in the locker room during film session. Like, we are hearing the stories, and Taylor Lewan on his podcast drops a lot of little nuggets, if you read between the lines, about his coaches and how they operate. He's told stories about Vrabel. It's not like they're isolated incidents. Like, Mike Vrabel was telling dudes, you suck. Like, why are we paying you? Blah, blah, blah. And I think Mike Vrabel is a very energy up and down. You can, those faces he would make on the sideline, and he's doing the surrender cobra and stuff like that. Like, I think that Brian Callahan in general is just a much more calm type guy. And hopefully that helps Will Levis too. But honestly, he does need to be more middled out, because the lows will sink him, and mistakes, they can compound and ball up. But I like having a guy like the opposite of this is Marcus. And I know a lot of people loved Marcus, and he has his place in this franchise's history, but I could not stand Marcus. And it's because he was so flatline. Bland. Yeah. Like, people would say that he's like calm and kind, and no, the MFer's boring is what he was. He's boring. You know what I mean? And that's why everybody loved that Barry Church stiff arm moment where he spun the block again and pulled up on him. Like, that was like, whoa, what is this guy doing? This dude never does any of this. And we all loved it. Well, imagine a guy who do that all the time. That's what and it's just me. I'm a very fiery guy. I'm a very high energy person. So I gravitate towards people who are like that. So that's a personal bias for me, but he does need to be more tempered, be more relaxed, be more even keeled. But I don't want him to lose that edge that makes him him either.
Absolutely.
I'd rather have a guy who's a little too, I'm going to get to the ball, coach. I'm going to get and have to like calm him down than have someone like Marcus who you kind of got to, come on, man, like, let's go, you know? So, but there is a fine line. And you're right. That is one of the big, along with like the mental processing, that's like part of it. His mentality, his mindset out on the field. I think that is a very big part of growth, you know, in his career is being a touch more even keeled out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, it's just don't make the mental mistakes and don't put yourself in stupid positions. I mean, you alluded to it just there. You know, you've got way more talent this year than you had last year. Rely on your talent, rely on your coaching, rely on your skills that you know you already have. You don't have to fold Jalen Ramsey like a lawn chair to get a first down in this offense.
Can I talk about that real quick? Everybody loves that play. If not for a penalty, he wasn't getting the first down. He was 5 yards short. Why are you lowering your shoulder into a DB? If you're a yard short and you got to bowl over the DB to get the first down, great. He was 5 yards short. What, like, they got a penalty on that play away from that led to a first down. People like forget that. Like, that was effing stupid what he did. That wasn't even like that was like when he got helicoptered, but he got the first down anyway against the Colts, I believe it was. It was like, oh, that was dumb, but hey, you got the first down. I get it. He was still 5 yards short of the first down. He got bailed out by an off-site penalty. That was so dumb, and everybody acts like I see that in like highlight packages and stuff, and I'm like, that is a moronic play. Please stop celebrating that play. It was so dumb. But anyways.
The only reason I love that as a rookie, do I want to see it this year? Absolutely not. But I kind of love that as a rookie because that's how you win the team. That's how you win the team. By lowering your shoulder, by making those dives, by going up like a helicopter. He won that team over last year. Ryan Tannehill started that season, but it was Will Levis's team by the end of the year, and it was because of stuff like that. And that's why I like it as a rookie, but I don't necessarily want to see the same thing this year. That's the biggest thing for me because now it's your team, so be a little more smart with your body this year.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that the show is basically saying everything I want without me actually having to say anything. But yeah, you said it beautifully right there, man. That's exactly it. Will Levis just needs to show a little bit of progression. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. You don't have to put the game on your shoulders anymore. Just be who you are. It's awesome. We love you. And just progress a little bit. I love the fact that Callahan, I think, said something about his feet. Working on his lower mechanics or whatever for camp, gave him something to work on. And I absolutely love the fact that he went to Cabo with some of his teammates, put out a tape of them throwing the ball around. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you want to see your franchise quarterback or your leader of the franchise doing. And
I wish we knew
checks all the boxes.
I wish we knew like what happened before Will Levis even played, because remember, that first game against Atlanta, Jeffrey Simmons, I told y'all that damn Will Levis could play.
That's right.
Conversations had been had in that locker room prior to that game. Yep. Like those veterans in the locker room were like, man, we should be playing Will. Man, the only time you say, I told you so, you don't say I told you so when you found out something you didn't know. You say, I told you so. But he was telling Arden Key, I told you Will could play. I told you. Like, so clearly Simmons and other players in the locker room had been discussing Will Levis and him starting at quarterback way before he ever actually went out on that field and, earned the respect in game. So I wish we'll never know. We'll never know for certain. Maybe we'll get stories 20 years from now, blah, blah, blah. But clearly people in that locker room were bought into Will Levis before he ever got a chance to even be the backup quarterback. Because remember, Malik Willis was the backup for the first 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. They had the lesser player ahead of the better player, even though Mike Vrabel was this meritocracy. You got to earn it, blah, blah, blah. So Will Levis was clearly better than Malik Willis the whole time. But yet he was the 3 QB instead of Malik. So that was a dog and pony show. Absolute nonsense. But I just wanted to point out that from that Jeffrey Simmons soundbite, we know he had the respect of those veterans before he ever got to play. So he's probably showing stuff like that in the locker room and in practice.
Absolutely.
Before he ever got on the field too. And I think that, again, those are the type of things, stupid or not, I'm a fan, man. And those type of things, seeing Jeffrey Simmons say that stuff, it just makes me believe in Will even more, you know?
Absolutely, man. And I'll be honest with you, yeah, the teams, the change you could see in the players that just literally played differently for Will Levis than they did Ryan Tannehill.
Yep.
It was blatantly obvious that there was a locker room shift going on. And I'm glad that the head office could see that and went with that momentum. And now we're looking to a pretty darn bright future here in Tennessee. I'm really excited about this season, more excited than I've been in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years since they hired Vrabel as the coach, which I know that sounds dumb now, but back then it didn't sound dumb.
I'll say 2021 for me. After the Julio trade, I was like, fired up. I thought the Titans could really win the Super Bowl that year. So I would say this is the most hype that I've been since before 2021 when they made the Julio trade. That this is I had no faith in the 2022 team, little faith last year. So I'm very hype, and as hype as I've been in quite some time. Let's hope it. Well, I mean, that year they went 12-5, got the number 1 seed. I know the Bengals game was an all-time disaster for the franchise, but I mean, that was a good year. You know what I mean? So I would love something like that. And that team's in a different spot than this team. This team seems like it's at the beginning, where that team, that was the end. At the end of the day, we look back, that was the end. So I think if they got anywhere close to that season, that would be fantastic.
Any final thoughts you want to give, Link, before we roll out here?
No, that's it. I mean, I think we pretty much said it all. Just the excitement going into this year. I mean, I know we're at a spot right now. Seems like, college baseball's at an end, basketball's at an end, the drafts are over. I mean, this is the time of the year I start really itching for football. I mean, the OTAs are about to start. I start watching weird sports. I watch cornhole tournaments and pickleball. And I mean, I'll do anything I can to get sports. So the closer we get, the more excited I am. And just make sure y'all stay with us, stay tuned, because I think we got an exciting season on the way for sure.
Dude, you know it's bad when I'm getting hype over RG3's track stuff, and oh my God, look at that dude run. Yeah, it's just because I'm just fiending for sports, man. I just need
thrive.
Tyler, man, if any of y'all don't know who Tyler Rowland is or don't follow him, then I don't know what rock you've been hiding under forever, but man is a legend. Locked On Titans, Tic Tac Titans on YouTube, Tic Tac Titans on Twitter. You need to follow the man if you don't. Tyler, did I miss All Titans, Sports Illustrated? Did I miss anything, brother?
No. And I'll just clear this up. I actually quit doing Sports Illustrated at the end of the year so I could focus on the film channel. Not that, it's not fun to write, but just it's a daily grind. And, I'm glad I checked the box, but it was time for me to have a little bit more work-life balance and focus more on the film. Than I'd rather be working on Sadiq Charles film breakdowns than writing, aggregation stories of Pro Football Focus ranked the Titans 92nd in offensive line rankings. It's just the day-to-day grind of writing and aggregating and all that can be a little much. So glad to check the box. Yeah, it is. It is bucket list type stuff, of course, to cover the team for Sports Illustrated, but just wanted to make sure I was accurate there. They got a new writer. He's doing a good job, stuff like that. Good for them. Congratulations. But I'm much more happier now on a day-to-day basis to have a little bit of my life back. So just wanted to clear that up, but you're right there. Tic Tac Titans on Twitter, Tic Tac Titans on YouTube, Locked On Titans, everywhere you find podcasts. Appreciate all the love. And definitely shout out to you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Anytime you are a God among men, as far as I'm concerned. But as always, if you guys want to follow us, Titans Global Podcast, basically anywhere you get your social media. And I am Maximus Titan Fan. You can find me on Facebook or Twitter. And my buddy Link Rogers, Facebook or Twitter, same thing. Until next time, guys, thanks for staying with us. Titans up. Peace out.
Yep.